So this is how you actually lose belly fat. Because I used to do those 5 minute fat burning ab workouts in my bedroom every night, hoping that I would magically lose belly fat. And it never worked. Even when I learned about a calorie deficit and started to lose fat, that fat came from my arms and my shoulders rather than my stomach. And my belly fat just wouldn't budge. Now, after having gotten down to 10% body fat, having a lean lower stomach, and my lower two abs finally showing, I'm going to show you how to actually go about losing belly fat. The first thing to note is that you can't specifically target your belly fat to be lost. Unfortunately, belly fat is the last place on most people's bodies that fat will be burned from. So, in most respects, the things that you're doing to lose fat on your body overall are also going to apply to losing fat on your belly specifically. And that is through being in a calorie deficit, which you might already know about. And essentially, what that means is eating less calories than you're expending every day. So that deficit in energy has to be made up through burning fat for that energy. But the thing is, by the time you're getting to the stage where your belly fat is actually starting to come off, that's normally when you've been in a calorie deficit for quite a long period of time already. You might have already begun the dieting process and seen fat loss in other areas of your body. And what that means is that your maintenance calories continue to drop lower and lower as you progress further and further into your dieting phase. And what that means is that you have to eat even less and less calories over time in order to consistently ensure that you are remaining in a calorie deficit. And obviously that's a lot harder because you might be hungrier and you're not able to eat as much food as you were at the start of your dieting phase. So there's always this conversation of whether you should be doing cardio and increasing your calorie expenditure in order to lose fat. Now, for the most part, I would say cardio is probably not required. If you're someone that's quite overweight and you're in the 20% and above levels of body fat, then I think the easiest way to go about the fat loss process is just by decreasing how many calories you're eating every day so that you're in calorie deficit. I think at that stage, cardio isn't really required because it's quite easy to be in a calorie deficit because your maintenance calories are likely quite high at that stage, and it doesn't really take that much willpower to eat less food. But if you're kind of in that 15 to 20% body fat region, then that's where I think cardio can play a much bigger role in losing that belly fat, because you've likely already progressed to the stage in your diet or cut where your maintenance calories have dropped lower and lower, and you might be seeing your progress in terms of fat loss begin to plateau. So you kind of need something a bit extra to get you over that line and into that calorie deficit region consistently to ensure that you're still losing fat, especially when it's so hard because you've already lost all the other fat on your body and it's just that belly fat that remains. The reason why I encourage cardio is because there's really only so much you can do with restricting your calorie intake. You're going to get to that point where you feel really hungry and your maintenance calories have just dropped so low to the point where if you were just going to be in maintenance, you'd be almost starving yourself. So that's why I encourage increasing calorie expenditure instead of changing your calorie intake to be in a deficit. Increasing my daily calorie expenditure through cardio is what really allowed me to continue being in calorie deficits consistently, even at that stage where my maintenance calories had dropped pretty low. And it meant that I didn't have to sacrifice the amount of food that I was eating. So I didn't feel as hungry, and the process of losing fat was a lot smoother. And of course, when it's easier and smoother to stick to, you're more likely to be able to do it. Through increasing my calorie expenditure, it meant that I was able to be in calorie deficits, even at that latter stage of the dieting phase. And through consistently being in deficits, even in those stages, is where my belly fat just had to come off. Now, I know the prospect of introducing cardio to your life can be quite an intimidating and scary thought for a lot of people. And trust me, it was for me as well. But I really want to just emphasize that cardio doesn't have to be just really intense running session. I want to encourage you to find the type of cardio that works best for you. And I know for a lot of people, it's just through walking or even incline walking. Hitting 10,000 steps every day isn't really that much of an effort. You can kind of fit that in through just walking to the supermarket instead of driving. It might be going for a walk on your lunch break at work. It doesn't have to be dedicated walking sessions that you're committing to. It can just be a part of your everyday life that you don't really have to think about. And just by living and going through your daily routine, you've hit the 10,000 step mark through not really putting too much effort into it. And by doing that, you're burning an extra 300 to 500 calories every day. The next thing is the importance of strength training and lifting weights, especially for males. The muscle to fat ratio on your physique is the most important thing when you're concerned over aesthetics and your physical appearance. If you have low levels of muscle mass, any belly fat that you have is going to be more pronounced compared to if you had a higher level of muscle mass. Any belly fat that you had would seem less significant because you just have that higher amount of muscle to go with your belly fat. So, for example, if you take this picture of Jason Momoa, he is holding a bit of belly fat. There's no arguing about that. But because he has just this higher level of muscle mass to go along with that belly fat, his stomach seems less significant and it plays an overall less important part of his physique. And you wouldn't say that Jason Momoa here has a bad or terrible physique, even though he is holding belly fat. Now compare Jason Momoa in that picture to just a person with low levels of muscle mass, but perhaps with the same level of belly fat. The belly fat in this photo seems just so much more significant and pronounced in this person's physique because they don't have the muscle mass to go along with that. So that's why lifting weights and building muscle is very important in terms of minimizing the effect of any belly fat that you might be holding. And I have a whole host of videos on my channel about how you can build muscle, so be sure to check them out. I think the next thing, sleep, is often the most underrated tool that you can use to lose belly fat. So there was a study done that took two groups of people. Both groups were in the same level of calorie deficit, but one group was restricted to sleeping a maximum of 5 hours every night, while the other group was allowed to sleep up to 8 hours every night. Both groups lost the same amount of weight, being 3 kilograms, but the group that slept less saw more of that weight loss through muscle, and the group that slept more saw more of that weight loss through fat. So hopefully I've helped in your process of losing belly fat. If you enjoyed or learned anything from this video, please consider subscribing because we are getting to 4,000 subscribers soon. As always, leave a like, leave a comment. I'm very keen to hear what your experience has been in losing belly fat, and I read and reply to every comment. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one.